what are the things that have been tried? The rescue mission, what, 115 years old, something like that?
119.
119. That's a long time and generations worth of knowledge about helping people. We really want to share that.
Thank you for tuning in to the Rescue Mission Podcast. My name is Jay. I'm the social media and communications coordinator. I've got here with me Pastor Matt Haberman, Director of Spiritual Care, and Blake Douglas, Senior Director of Marketing and Events.
Hey.
Hello.
So today is our initial podcast. We're discussing why we are starting a podcast. Matt's kind of the visionary behind this. And so, Matt, I'm going to let you share a little bit of the backstory behind how this got started.
The initial conception of this whole thing was the idea that felt this is a great medium to be able to communicate some stuff. And immediately it was like, well, this could be for our staff. This could be some really useful airtime, if you will, that we could put some shows together that would be really relevant to all of the stuff we do here at the Rescue Mission. And that rolled right into thinking, well, maybe other people want to hear that too. Maybe there's not just people who are part of the fabric of what's going on here in Fort Wayne. We have a lot of people who might hear this would know that we have a pretty robust and involved nonprofit community in Fort Wayne, and businesses and ministries working together and all those sorts of things. And so there are a lot of people who are involved in doing what we do. And if we could be a blessing to that, if we could take what is helpful for us here at the Rescue Mission and expand the scope of that a little bit, and then we got really ambitious and thought, maybe possibly outside of Fort Wayne, there are some people who would latch on and glean a lot from this. And so at that point, we figured we probably ought to make it relevant and informed enough so that it's going to be worth it for a lot of people to listen to it. So our hope is that you're not just going to listen to some people rambling. You're not going to listen to fluff, and you're not going to listen to stuff that's going to be so jargony or so focused on the rescue mission that it's not going to be of use to you. So we're hoping to reach,
And honestly, no one's doing this.
Right.
We looked around and didn't really see any podcast out there that was handling the topics that we felt would be relevant to those we serve, but also the community as a whole, related to homelessness, near homelessness, poverty, fill in the blank of those we serve that you'd want to talk about. And really, there's not a great podcast out there tackling those topics and talking about things that would really affect that audience or those individuals.
I wanted to ask you guys, what were some of the things that you learned when you first started looking at the Rescue Mission that you might not have known without working here?
I mean, mine was more that I just had no idea about the topic of homelessness. I thought I did. You see a panhandler, you see people, wandering the streets, and you automatically put some titles or some misconceptions around them. And I was as far from in the right area as I could have been. I lived in Indy for 5+ years, and being downtown Indy, you see it way more than even Fort Wayne. And I'd always, give guys my leftovers after we'd go to a dinner or anything, but I had no idea. And even just my first month here was just a wrecking ball of learning. Wow, I need to work on my misconceived notions and perceptions because they were off.
Well, for me, I've been a pastor for 20 plus years, and one of the things that I ran up against when I started is that I had more than a few books on my shelf that were referring to all the things that I was now seeing and smelling and feeling and experiencing on a daily basis. And there really is something about hearing from somebody's experience and experiencing it yourself. One of the things that comes right to mind as I tell people, how my job is going or what it is I do, is that it's all the stuff that I've been wanting to do as a pastor for 20 years and was not close enough to do, was not inside the circle of where that activity is appropriate. Because I think, for a lot of us, we don't ever have to stop and face it. We don't have to help if we don't want to. We're at a crossroads between Washington and Jefferson and Lafayette and Clay, and you can go north and south and east and west and not have to slow down. Occasionally, you might actually get a little bit concerned if you're at the stoplight here.
People run it. It's fine. They'll just go straight through it.
There's a lot of really good testing of engines past our building. A lot of fun noises. Yeah, but if you're there and you lean to the side a little bit and you look at some of the community that we attract, there are a lot of responses that somebody can have if they don't have to be in that situation. It's another thing to come to work and make a choice to be in that situation. I'll say for you and I who have worked a little bit of the front lines in the emergency services here, that's working really directly with those people who are coming off the street. It doesn't take very long to reach your limit. You know, compassion fatigue is a thing. And I was just thinking about this earlier in relation to a lot of our staff. PTSD is a thing, not just with all of the people that we're working with, but with us. There are times when you are going through something with somebody that is their worst time of their life. And to be with somebody if they are detoxing or not detoxing at all, but instead, overdosing, if they are having a manic episode, if they are having a financial crisis, or fill in the blank. All of these things are things that we're working with every day, and it's really easy to continue to show up every day and go to your station, go to your desk, do the task that's in front of you, and not ever really process what's going on around you.
Well, and isn't there sometimes some shame around if you're feeling fatigued or you're feeling burnt out, the audacity for you to feel that when the people that are coming in, only have the clothes on their back. So for you to feel this burnt out feeling when you get to go home to a family and a house and food on the table, at times it's kind of this giving yourself the permission to feel that, because we're all human and we all go through those emotions. And I think that was something that I was kind of in the back seat for. I saw it happen to other individuals here. I never got to that point because I was never on the front lines, but understanding that happens and that's okay and it's acceptable, I think is a big thing I saw happening here as well, because we have a decent amount of turnover sometimes depending on the season we're in, because you're right. It can be
just to be
trying.
Clear, that turnover on staff, right?
Yes.
Yes. Because we have a ton of turnover with our community.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a hard. this is not an easy job.
No, and it's giving yourself the permission to have those feelings, because you have to come in and be that person's rock, that person's steady, that their true north. And at times you need a true north, and knowing that, I think, is really important, especially for that frontline staff.
Yeah. Well, do you mind if I take a little rabbit trail down the pastor side of this whole thing?
Let's take a little rabbit trail and just go on down the path, see where it takes us.
Just it's nice that we have a way of knowing that we're off the. But I think as my position here at the Rescue Mission, the informal title that I've given it is pastor to the staff. So I make sure that. Or try to at least make sure that the staff is cared for those people who are caring for or facilitating the care for a community, a vulnerable population. I want to make sure that those people, we have their backs. And to think about the theological underpinnings of all of this is the idea of in Romans 12, where Paul gives a nice list of, like, if you're going to follow Jesus, these are the things that you're going to do. And one of those things is the two-sided coin of, rejoice with people who rejoice and weep with people who weep. And when you begin to understand that the community that we are serving here is not just the vulnerable population coming in off the street or from working poverty, but is the actual people in these offices. is the people who are trying their best to come up with the resources to keep this ministry going. The ones who are making decisions on what we do about food, the ones who are making decisions on what kind of resources we are going to offer and what kind we are not going to be able to offer. And all of those things lead to, just what we were talking about, Blake, in terms of you want to do everything, right? There's not too many people who take a job at the rescue mission who don't want to help, right? It's kind of written into the whole fabric of what we do. But when you can't fix everything, that does something to your insides. A lot of people, it happens under the surface. So people don't even recognize that they might be feeling guilty. People don't recognize why they're extra irritated or those types of things. So I think that idea of wanting to offer encouragement is going to be a fundamental thing in this. This is not a gripe podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
This is not a complaint about the other people across the way and what they are not doing.
Mm-hmm. But there are so many different stories here on a given day, if you pause and think about it, from the person sitting behind the front desk to the person working on the 4th floor to the guys that are coming off the streets. I told a lot of people when they would ask me what it was like to work on the front lines, like most of the people that you're meeting are having the worst day of their life. Like you are meeting somebody on the worst day of their life, and they are looking to you for hope, for dignity, sometimes for encouragement, sometimes just because they need a place to sleep. But one thing that we wanted to share in this podcast to open eyes and bring awareness to what it is like to actually be at the rescue mission. It's really easy to drive by and make assumptions about the guy that's sitting on the curb outside, or if you're brave enough to drive through the parking lot to see the crowd of people outside and make assumptions about them. But one thing that we want to do with this podcast is have some of the men, women, and children on that are receiving services so that they can share their story. We've got stories up on our YouTube channel, and they're all equally incredible, and they're all equally different of where these people came from. There's people that came from different backgrounds. It's not just, oh, this person was addicted to drugs and it made them homeless and now they're all better. But
that's not how it happens.
That's not how it happens. And as we progress and as we go through these episodes, we'll be processing through, what is the experience of being at the rescue mission? What is the experience of working at the rescue mission? What is the experience of serving this population of people that we serve, because we want to bring awareness and knowledge of what it's like. And we really think as we talk about these things, it'll impact people more than we think. One episode that we've got on the docket is, how do you help panhandlers? Like, am I supposed to give this guy money? Am I supposed to give him food? Like, what am I supposed to do? And so that's one thing we're going to talk about. We really want to make this a resource. We want to make this something that you can listen to, and it adds value. So that as you're listening to the episode on how do you help a panhandler, I remember talking with one of my neighbors, and I thought, one of the best things that you can give them is a resource guide. We've got these resource guides that we pass out. But let's say you're out driving, you don't have a resource guide on you. Hopefully, if you've listened to the podcast for a little bit, you've gained some wisdom, some knowledge of how you can help these people. Matt, what do you think about this from like a resource perspective for people that are listening to it?
Yeah, I think what I always hope to do is, not to keep ringing the bell, but that weep with those who weep and rejoice with those. You can't do that unless you know somebody, or at least know something about somebody. You can't really care for somebody unless you see their needs, unless you see them as a person. And it's so easy to be a billboard culture. It's so easy to be the bumper sticker slogans, and we have a 4-week sermon series on loving the poor. And then when you're done with that, you move right on to how to be a healthy dad and mom, and you forget about it, right? And I think one of the things that we would really like to do is like to show how important we think actual people are, rather than a demographic or treating people as a need, right? It's really easy to see, and you're not even talking about that homeless person. You're not even talking about the poor in our city. You're talking about Joe or Eileen or Chris or whomever. You're talking about the guy that you may have sat down with at dinner. You're talking about the guy who you just talked about life with.
Our culture does everything we can to dehumanize people.
Yeah.
And really, I think that's where, for me, too, homelessness was, when I started working here, was something that, you don't think of it as the individual, you think of it as a whole. And knowing that person as someone's son or possibly someone's father or grandfather or fill in the blank, like it's easy to just kind of put up your wall because of the way society trains your mind to just forget things and ignore things and focus on different things. I think for me, this podcast is a chance to talk about topics, even, the panhandling thing. No one has probably ever done a podcast that's like, here are 3 things you can do for a panhandler. That doesn't mean people aren't interested in that or they wouldn't like the knowledge. They've just never cared enough to actually ask the question. So by posing it out there and giving them that information, I think it's a tool and a resource that will allow those in the community to feel more empowered to approach these individuals that maybe previously to them were unapproachable, or there was a stigma or fear there to approach them because of these preconceived notions.
Well, and on top of that too, it's not just us, asking the question and saying, what do we think about this? This is something that we do we try to be informed about this, right? When we do come to work, we're trying to figure out, well, really appropriately, what is the way that Jesus would have done this? What is the way that Jesus did do this? Does it say something about how we should do it? How does that translate? And what are the things that have been tried? The rescue mission, 115 years old, something like that?
119.
119. That's a long time and generations worth of knowledge about helping people. And we really want to share that. And I think one of the things, at least in thinking about the podcast initially, was we need to have a lot of these stories told. Right, we have a wide dearth of
dearth. That is
a
word.
Get Matt's word of the day corner. We have this depth of knowledge, of experience. I'm thinking of 3 or 4 people on staff right now who have been here for a while that we really want to pick their brains and their hearts and their souls to say, what have you seen? What are the hard things? What did you try and fall on your face? And then what do you want to try now? And how are we going after people? So it's not just a matter of encouraging our people, but it's also a matter of like, let's leverage the experience and the legacy and the generational knowledge that we have and pass that on.
I think it's back to awareness. I think a big thing we've struggled with, especially since I've been here doing the marketing with the mission, is just people being aware of everything we're doing, from the programs we're offering to the resources that are available to those we serve. And a big thing, it's actually a stat here that Jay had pulled up, that last year the rescue mission served 1,787 residential overnight guests and 257,000 meals. That just is a number that is a little staggering to me when you think of hundreds of thousands of meals being given out and to these individuals. And each of those meals, kind of like what you were saying, went to a person, it's easy to see big numbers like that and forget that, well, one of those meals could have changed someone's life. We always say, hope begins with a meal here. And so that's 257,000 opportunities for hope in my mind. And just thinking of it in that perspective has always helped me realize, like, wow, there's a lot here that we could, if our community knew, or if they understood, or if we just did a better job of bringing them alongside us, they would definitely get behind us. That's what I foresee this podcast as, that resource that really fills that gap that so many people just, it's not a lack of desire, it's maybe just they didn't know. Now that they do, they're going to act upon it.
We are excited. We're excited for the conversations we're going to have, for the content that's going to come out of this, for the insight we'll get from guests. We just want to give another thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this podcast, and for those that have tuned in to this demo and given us a listen. We appreciate your time. This has been the Rescue Mission Podcast.